Hello spooky people, and welcome to In the Maw of Thanatos, where I talk about all types of horror, both old and new, because that's what I do. Once again, I'll be going back in time to the early 2000s, when horror was going through the early stages of its resurgence. The end credits were full of mediocre metal bands, and the Weinsteins were ruining the fun for everyone. This was a difficult review to write, not because the film is bad per se, but because, well, you'll see. With that said, let's go back to 2002 and take a look inside the creepy closet of They. Or, to give it its full American title, Wes Craven presents They. In broad strokes, the film concerns itself with four friends who discover that the night terrors they used to suffer from as children may be more real than they thought. Sounds pretty interesting, right? The introductory scene is fairly standard, if not a little perfunctory, but it does introduce some of the law and rules for they, them, never mind.
They come for me when it's dark.
As well as the greatest advice you will ever receive as a child.
If you pull the covers over your head, you're safe, right?
Right.
This part originally was from the point of view of Sarah, another character who also suffers from night terrors. Played by Jodelle Ferland in her film debut. You may know her from after little Billy is dragged under his bed by unseen forces. We are dumped 19 years into the future, or the past for anyone not watching in 2002. It's here that we are introduced to our heroine, Julia Lund, played by Laura Reagan, who, in classic early 2000s tradition, rides a bike everywhere and hates the internet.
Julia, Kim, hey, join us here in the 21st century, huh? Get email.
I hate email.
Oh, so quirky! See, she's not like other girls. She's a psychology grad student in a final year with a handsome boyfriend, Mark Blucas. Sorry, wrong clip. Goddamn Riley. All things are hunky-dory for Julia until she receives a call from her childhood friend and the boy from the beginning, Billy. Another familiar face.
Wait. Alright.
The scene with Billy in the diner is probably the best in the movie. Flickering lights, muted indistinct chatter from the other patrons, the atmosphere building as you listen to Billy's fearful, frantic exposition to Julia.
They can't be in the light. They hide in the dark so you can't see them.
Culminating in a satisfying crescendo and Billy's death.
Sorry.
No!
After which we meet Billy's friends, Terry and Sam.
I'm Sam. This is my roommate.
Terry, hi. Billy, Sam, and I were really close in college.
And we learn that they also suffer from night terrors as children, and again now, as adults. Later, we get to listen to the heartwarming story of when Terry had an especially bad night terror as a child.
When I was 5, I watched my sister drown in a lake right after I started to suffer from these terrible night terrors. There was one particularly bad night. I was gone. I looked everywhere. Then my father went into the backyard, and he heard a noise in the doghouse of all places. He stooped down, looked in, and that's when I stabbed him in the eye with a kitchen knife.
Since I've mentioned Sam, his painting in the film is one that a young goth Mike would have loved on his wall. The pair predictably die, but in scenes that build quite nicely, but result in very little. Which beyond the diner scene becomes something of a theme. As the film progresses and Julia's world collapses around her, it's clear that none of the people in her life believe her, thinking instead that witnessing her friend's death and the pressure of her looming finals is pushing her towards a breakdown. Skipping ahead, Julia finds herself in a dingy alley breaking into a Chinese restaurant's kitchen. After staring in the mirror for just a moment, she manages to find and remove a massive spike from her scalp and drops it in the sink. In typical horror movie tradition, she leaves it there and goes to see her boyfriend Riley. I mean Paul. Wait a minute. You already know that he doesn't believe you, so why not take that shit as evidence? For God's sake. So, not only does the next person who uses the bathroom have to clean up her blood and the hideous head splinter, but they might accidentally get taken by they. Or them. Well done, Laura! Also, doesn't removing the spike mean that the creatures can no longer track Laura? Isn't she safe now? Back to the point. Just to prove that the people around her don't believe her story, her boyfriend slips her a sedative in her drink when she comes to him hysterical and shouting about the spike that she's just removed from her head.
There was this thing, like a big splinter, and I pulled it out of me.
Pulled what out of you?
And then Laura continues with the great decisions by leaving, not to find help, but to wander aimlessly into the subway just as the drugs kick in. Okay, I know that's enough spoilers now. That's not what I want to do here. I am, however, going to talk about the ending, or rather, the two endings. There's one where it's all real, and there's one where she is, to be blunt, crazy. When I first saw the movie in my late teens, I preferred the theatrical ending. One of the few things that stuck in my head about the movie. I mean, the more monsters, the better, right? But now, at the age of I prefer the alternate ending, where we find out that Laura has actually been institutionalised since 1982, and everyone that we've met in the film was either a patient or a member of staff, and the whole film was a delusion. My ideal ending would be a combination of the two, but some would call that greedy and having my cake and eating it, but after sitting through this, I think I deserve it. Are you not here to entertain me, movie? And that was They. So, the movie came out in November of 2002, the perfect time to release a horror movie, of course, after Halloween and just before Christmas. Made for an estimated $17 million, it grossed $16.5 million. That return says a lot about the general reception of the film. It seems that not even Wes Craven's name could bolster interest in a movie that came out just as the shops were filling up with Santas and other garish paraphernalia. As mentioned before, the full US title for They is actually Wes Craven Presents They. However, the icon of horror had nothing to do with the actual production. It was more of a, can we put your name on this? Yeah, sure, why not? Type conversation. Originally, the screenplay was written by Brendan Hood, and was about 4 college students discovering that the Earth is secretly run by a race of organic machines who harvest humans for spare parts, as their machine bodies fail them. Even though Hood received a writing credit, very little of his original screenplay remains in the finished product, besides the basic idea of humans being harvested by an unknown extra-dimensional entity. Instead of running with what Hood gave them, the producers decided to hire an additional 10 writers to rework the script into the final product that we got. Great job! The special effects in this film are so-so. The practical ones are good, the spike removal is effectively creepy. The CGI is passable for the early 2000s. It's not great, but it's not terrible either. You don't see the creatures very much, which works very much in the film's favour. Like the CGI, the acting is okay, if a little flat. No one will obviously blow you away, and they are obviously doing the best that they can with a script that was written by 10 people. So, would I watch it again? Probably in another 20 years when I remember that it exists. Would I recommend it? Not so much. Whilst the idea is interesting and it takes its time to build atmosphere, it really doesn't succeed in a payoff and it all falls a little flat. I suggest you watch something else instead, like Return of the Living Dead 3. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. Take care and stay spooky. I know that this video has been a little dry, so here are some horror-themed jokes to get you through your day. What is hot and scary at the same time? A ghost pepper. What do you call witches living together? Broommates. What is a scary Halloween dessert that just keeps coming back? A boomerang. Wait, no, I'm sorry, no, they get funny, believe me. What do you get if you cross a vampire and a snowman? Frostbite. What did the skeleton order at the restaurant? Spare ribs. No, don't click away. No. What do you call the website where you can watch online horror movies? The Screaming Service. Have you seen the horror movie about a bunch of campers that get killed? It's intense. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Why do they come for you?
To eat me.